You're listening to Rendezvous with the Writer with Bobbi Jean and Jim Bell, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to Rendezvous with the Writer, where readers and writers meet, and story is everything. We're your hosts tonight, Jim and Bobbi Bell.
And this time of the year, we like to say we are the Jingle Bells.
Jingle Bells?
We are your hosts tonight, and we have two very special guests joining us. Come on with Henry Park and with Lynn Downey. We're so delighted to have you with us. That was the Hot Texas Swing Band, of course, escorting you into the studio. Our good friends, Hot Texas Swing Band, doing that number, Hot Texas. And hello, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Howdy.
Howdy. So this is the first Thursday of the month.
Right, and we have Henry Park.
And so Henry Park has joined us.
The film editor of True West Magazine.
Yes.
And we have it right here.
Of course. We have it right here. With
I have mine too.
There you go.
I have mine on the shelf.
And yours is on the shelf. All great.
Read all about the films of Jack London.
That's what we got.
I love that article.
Thank you so much.
I live 20 minutes away from Jack London State Park.
Oh,
I'm
my
sorry
gosh.
to say again.
I live 20 minutes away from Jack London State Park. I love anything about Jack London.
Oh, that's terrific.
My
It's a
goodness.
great article.
Right.
We planned this just on purpose.
Of course.
Were
Perfect.
we not amazing schedulers or what?
Amazing.
Lynn is the author tonight. She's an author of many books, but tonight we'll be talking about two. The first one is Levi Strauss, the man who gave blue jeans to the world. And I wonder if he knew the repercussions of blue jeans in the world. And her second book is a fun fiction read. The second in a series, Dude or Die. And you would have to be wearing Levi's, if you're going to go to a guest or dude ranch, right? So, and so we're going to talk with Lynn in just a few moments. We're going to go ahead, though, and let's catch up with Henry. Henry, what's going on in the Western film and big and little screen?
Well, I'll tell you, of course, there hasn't been a lot of film production to talk about lately with the writers and then the actors strikes, which thankfully are over. I'm Writers Guild and did all of my picketing at the Radford lot in Studio City because it used to be Republic Pictures. So I was picketing where Gene Autry and Roy Rogers worked. And just mention that today is December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. So I'm wearing my Remember Pearl Harbor shirt.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually not only a battle cry, but the title of a war effort movie from Republic starring Don Red Barry. And now back to Westerns. The big Western news since we last spoke has been the rousing success of both Killers of the Flower Moon, the movie from Martin Scorsese about the swindling and murders of oil-rich Oklahoma Osage Indians, and from Taylor Sheridan, Lawman, Bass Reeves, the Paramount Plus limited series about the legendary Deputy U.S. Marshal, who was also the first Black Marshal west of the Mississippi. Have you folks had a chance to see either of those?
We've seen the first episode of Bass.
I think, the first.
We have not seen the other movie, though.
Right. We were very impressed with Bass Reeves.
Me too. I've only seen the first two, but what I've seen is excellent. And I think Killers of the Flower Moon is a terrific film. Absolutely, going to be a classic. But at 3.5 hours, it needs an intermission or a half-hour trim, and maybe both.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I didn't realize it was 3.5. Have you seen it, Lynn? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet. I was going to see it on Christmas Day, actually.
All right.
It's I don't know that it's Christmassy, but it's very entertaining, and the history is right. That's the important thing. About Bass Reeves, I spoke to creator-producer Chad Feehan, who told me that they plotted it out to potentially have a second season, which you remember when Taylor Sheridan did 1883,
Sure
of
do.
which Reeves is sort of a spin-off. Paramount Plus went crazy because it was such a huge hit, but the story could not be continued. They didn't make that mistake with 1923, and they're not doing it here either. Coming in January from our friends at the INSP channel, they're continuing with their series Into the Wild Frontier about the famed figures of the Mountain Man era, and adding a new Western series, Tall Tales of Jim Bridger. And there will be a fourth season of Wild West Chronicles rolling camera in January. Also coming in 2024, 31 years after his original movie Posse, Mario Von Peebles will be releasing his follow-up Black Western, Outlaw Posse. And of course, the question, what have we got on the horizon? We have Horizon on the horizon. The 2 or possibly 3-part epic that Kevin Costner quit Yellowstone to make. The first 2 films are in the can, and the plan is to release part 1 at the beginning of the summer of 2024 and part 2 at the summer's end. And of course, for me, the big excitement of 2024 is that in February, my book is coming out.
Yay!
All right,
Yay!
Ever the Narcissist. Thank you.
And we've already booked you.
Yes, I am so pleased. Thank you so much. Here's what the cover will look like.
Yes, the greatest Westerns ever made. And then the subline is
and the people who, I know it's hard to read, the greatest Westerns ever made and the people who made them. The book will be much larger, so you'll be able to read the title and all the words inside.
and it's available for pre-order now.
It certainly is. It's pre-order right now at bookshop.org. I'm proud to say it's on the Rendezvous created book list, curated book list.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We're delighted that you're going to actually be with us the first Thursday in February as you are today, and you'll be back the next week as the featured guest.
I'm monopolizing the whole thing.
It's so fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Well, let's see. So Henry's staying on with us, Lynn, because he just loves to hear what we're talking about. And every now and then he may just jump in with a question, or we'll say, Henry, what do you think about that?
Please do.
I'll panic.
You'll panic.
I'll have a snappy question.
Excellent. So let's go ahead, Jim. You want to go ahead and introduce Lynn Downey, who is our second guest with us tonight. Yeah. She's wearing a very snazzy denim.
Is that a Levi jacket?
Of course it is.
It's a leading question.
Right answer.
I have my Levi jeans on. I don't have the 501s, but they're 527s.
Yeah, and you can't
really a Western cut.
You can't really see them.
That's okay.
But he does have them on.
I believe
I verify
it. Let's accept that. Let's read this little bio here. Our featured author tonight is Lynn Downey, an award-winning historian, novelist, and a consultant archivist. She was the company historian for Levi Strauss & Company in San Francisco for 25 years, and her biography of Levi Strauss came out in 2016. Her first novel, Dudes Rush In, won the Will Rogers Medallion Award and a New Mexico Arizona Book Award. The sequel, Do or Die, came out this past October. Lynn consults with museums, corporations, and historical societies about their archives, and is on many boards dedicated to archives and historic preservation. She is a past president of Women Writing the West and writes the blog Tumble Reads, a new twist on the Old West. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so happy.
Good to have you.
It was fun. We met Lynn this summer at the Western Writers of America conference, and there was an afternoon of roundtable kind of breakout sessions. And we're readers, we're not writers, and so any one of those tables would have just helped us even understand more about the writing process. And I think you led one. It was biography was in the title, wasn't it, of that session?
Uh-huh.
And we were lucky we got the last 2 spots at that table. And I actually sat right next to Lynn, which is always, sitting right next to the presenter when you're not an author,
That is a little what?
Yeah. So anyway, but we got to talking a little bit, and I thought, we've met her in the past, and it was a long time ago. But Henry, you'll find this very fun. Lynn did a presentation at the Autry Museum in the Wells Fargo Theater. And she brought the most expensive pair of jeans at the time. That may still be the most expensive from the Levi collection. She did a fabulous presentation on the history of Levi Strauss and the company. And then these young, not young, college age students did a fashion show with denim that they'd been gifted through their college class. They had to design outfits, and it was like
everything had to be made out of denim.
And these kids talked afterwards at a panel discussion about how hard it was to work with the material that they really had no idea. One gentleman said he had washed it through his mother's washing machine, like 10 times one afternoon, and then he'd thrown sneakers in, and and it didn't matter. It was still as stiff as a board. It was a wonderful presentation. So we were so delighted to make the connection again with you, Lynn, and to have you with us tonight. And that's the longest thing we're going to say. Now it's all on you. So you want to start with our basic opening question?
Like, when did you start writing?
Yeah.
I can't remember when I wasn't writing. I was one of those nerds in junior high who went, "Oh, goody, we get to write a term paper." That was me. Oh boy, I get to research something and write it. So I was obviously preparing myself for a career as a historian. I wrote stories when I was a kid, and I always say I've been writing all my life, but I didn't get paid for it until the 80s when I started publishing articles in historical journals.
Yeah. Now, you went to school. You have a background as an archivist, and you're also, though, a historian. What is the difference for those who may not know, between an archivist and a historian?
Well, as an archivist, I got a master's degree in library. You can say archivist is also acceptable, not to worry. Although I have had people think I'm saying that I'm an archaeologist, and no. So I got a master's degree in library science, which in the 80s was the gateway for graduate school to be an archivist, because I always loved the stuff of history, old books and documents and photographs. Ever since I was a little girl, I loved history. So what historians do is use what archivists have done. Archivists organize historical materials, make them accessible, and then historians use them for their work. So I've been able to do both. I've been working as an archivist probably close to about 40 years.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get connected with the Levi Strauss Company?
Well, I was working as an archivist in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then a friend of mine was the director of the local branch of the National Archives. And she called me in August of 1989 and said, "I didn't know what to get you for your birthday, so I thought I'd get you a new job." And the company had contacted the National Archives and asking, "We need to hire our very first archivist, and we don't know what to do." So she gave them my name. Wow. And let's see, 4 months and 5 interviews later, I got the job. I had been working for a couple of other organizations. I had a lot of business experience as a corporate archivist. That might have been one of the reasons I was hired. And it was very interesting because when I walked into my first day, I discovered that my title was historian. So even though my task, my skill was as an archivist, what they wanted me to do was use the company's historical materials to interpret the history for a variety of audiences.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah, you worked for a fellow by the name of Haas, right?
Yes, yes. Mr. Bob Haas was the CEO of the company at the time, and he is the great-great-grandnephew of Levi Strauss himself.
That's what I want to ask. Now, was he the last Strauss member to lead the company?
Family member, yes, but the family still owns the company. They're still the majority stockholder. They still own the company. The Levi Strauss never married, and the Haas family is descended through his nephews. If you know San Francisco at all, there's a place called Sigmund Stern Grove. It's a beautiful grove of eucalyptus. They have a huge bluegrass festival there every year, lots of concerts. Well, Sigmund Stern was Levi Strauss's nephew. And it's his descendants that are the Haas family and still own the company today. Okay. And it's because I had such a wonderful relationship with Bob when I was getting into my job. And I got so fascinated with the man himself, Levi Strauss. I started calling him Uncle Levi because he was Bob's Uncle Levi, and he had no problem with that.
You know, we had something hot off the press, and we didn't talk about this the other day because we couldn't, I guess, but this is going to be a new CEO for Levi Strauss. And you're probably aware of Michelle Gass. She's been president for a year, and she used to run Kohl's.
I heard that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I left the company almost 10 years ago, but that means nothing. I'm still, I bleed.
I figure you're up to date. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will never wear any other brand of denim for the rest of my life. It's just the way it is. But yes, I did hear that. The first female CEO of that company. It's very exciting.
This announced at 6:00 Eastern Standard Time today in the Wall Street Journal. So I just happened to see it. So
he was very excited
we got to bring
share that news. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Before we are going to take a break in a moment, and then when we come back, we're going to talk greater length about this book. But would you just take a moment and tell us about your personal family's life in the West? You've been grounded in the West for a very long time, yes?
My family has lived in the West since about 1910, mostly Nevada and Oregon. And then the first batch moved into California in the early 1920s. So we're very deep into the West. My uncle raised quarter horses in the suburbs east of San Francisco in the 50s and 60s, and two of my cousins rodeoed. So I had a very Western lifestyle. And also I just was always in love with Western history. And I would hear my family stories about what it was like to live in a railroad car in Oregon because they were so poor. My great-great-grandfather worked for the family that ran the Sutro Tunnel in Nevada. And he was a chef that cooked for the crews, stringing the telephone lines across Nevada.
Wow.
That's what I grew up with, these wonderful Western stories.
So always something to write about.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Always something to write about. We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to take a look at one of the spots that you can find all of Lynn's books, and where eventually you'll find, where you can pre-order Henry's book tonight. This is our affiliate page for bookshop.org. And when we come back, Lynn's going to tell us more about Levi Strauss. Don't change that dial. Stay right there. Story is everything. Find a great one on Out West Shop's bookshop. Go to outwestshop.com. Find books and CDs on the menu. Choose Shop Out West on bookshop.org. Browse through featured authors on Rendezvous with a Writer. Explore curated book lists and our featured picks. Add in note cards, calendars, and jigsaw puzzles. One-stop shopping for great gifts. Use the search box to find thousands more titles. Make the switch. Your purchase supports us as independent booksellers. That's our story.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with a Writer with special guest Henry Park and special guest Lynn Downing. We're talking to Lynn Downing about her book, Levi Strauss. We have a question here. When you first got involved with being a historian for Levi Strauss, you found you had a lot of misconceptions out there floating around the world about Levi, the company, what happened, how we got jeans started. Would you care to comment?
Oh my gosh, how much time do you have, you guys?
There you go.
Oh, Lordy. Well, the company had never had anybody doing their history before I came along. And they made assumptions about the past based on the evidence they had. They did the best they could. And one reason there was such a problem is the company lost everything in the 1906 earthquake and fire. The first 50 years of their history destroyed. Everything about Levi Strauss's life destroyed because he died in 1902. So there was mythology about Levi, that he was this penniless immigrant who stumbled off a boat in San Francisco and saw men walking around with their pockets hanging off their, the pants pockets hanging down, and he thought, I'll make some pants out of the canvas sails or tent canvas, and then we'll dye them blue. Oh, well, it's nonsense. That did not happen. But that's what they had to work with. They had just a little bit of evidence to work with. So he was not a penniless immigrant. He was bankrolled by his brothers back in New York City. He had opened the West Coast branch of the New York family business as in wholesale dry goods. So there was this sense that the company needed an origin story, especially after World War II, because a lot of other jeans companies were coming along. But what I found was that the real story was so much more fascinating. And the important thing for me to say tonight, of course, is this year, 2023, is the 150th anniversary of the blue jean, of Levi Strauss and his partner, Jacob Davis, introducing the blue jean to the world. And that came about because Jacob Davis was this inventor in Reno, Nevada. He was a tailor, but he liked to tinker. And he started making pants with rivets and all the stress points, and the pockets and on the pants he was making for his customers. And they loved them. So he contacted Levi Strauss and said, hey, we should take out a patent together. And Levi was very smart. He wasn't a tailor. He wasn't a manufacturer, but he was a man with vision. And he said, this is a really great idea. So they got a patent, which was granted May 20th, 1873. It's the birth of the blue jean.
There's a little bit of story behind getting that patent. That was very difficult for them. And why did Jacob go to Levi? He had probably some other sources he could have gone to partner with in getting that patent. So I think it speaks to the man Levi himself why he went there.
Exactly. It was not cheap to apply for a patent, and you also needed an attorney to help you fill out the paperwork. And Jacob Davis didn't have any of that in Reno, Nevada in 1872, but he bought a lot of his fabric from the wholesale dry goods house of Levi Strauss. And Levi had such a sterling reputation as an honest man. So what does Jacob Davis do? He takes this new invention, these pants with rivets, and he puts them on Wells Fargo stagecoach, sends them down to San Francisco with a letter and says, hey, Mr. Strauss, we can make money with these pants if we take out a patent. Now, he did not enclose a non-disclosure agreement in that letter. No, he did not. He didn't have to, because he knew if Levi Strauss wasn't interested, he would tell him that, and he would not take his idea. And of course, his faith was certainly rewarded. And then Levi brought Jacob Davis and his family to San Francisco after the patent was granted, so that he would be in charge of the manufacturing, and Levi would stay in charge of just the wholesale dry goods part of the business.
So what was the original color, and what's the material that they're made out of?
Well, there was always blue denim.
It was always
denim can be any color. It's always one colored thread and one white thread. But there was another type of fabric called duck, which is this really heavy weave that's like canvas. And so duck and denim were the two traditional fabrics for men's work pants. So the company actually made riveted duck and denim pants beginning in 1873. And then because they owned a patent, the company had the exclusive right to make riveted clothing until 1892. And they sued everybody else who started making riveted pants before 1892.
And the next question I had on that is the collection in the archive. You brought a pair of pants, and that pair of pants had an interesting story.
Which one did I bring?
Well, you brought, at the time, they were the most expensive pant that the collection had, and they'd been found in a mine. They were a miners, had been a miners. See, I don't want to start a myth. Well,
here's the deal. When I was first hired, there were a few pairs of 19th century pants in the archives that people had given to the company over the years. And the company gave me a very healthy budget and said, you need to fill in the blanks of everything we lost in the earthquake and fire. And at that time, the late 80s and early 90s, there was this huge interest in vintage Levi's jeans. And there were lots of people finding them in old mines, barns, bunkhouses. And when they heard there was somebody at the company paying money for them, it was like, I didn't have to go anywhere and buy vintage jeans. I just had to pick up the phone. So during my career, the most expensive pair was one from 1879. And at the time was the oldest pair of jeans known. because the earliest pair would have been 1873. It's hard to actually put a date on them, but I figured it was about 1879. They at the time, they were probably, well, they were priceless, but they're probably worth about $300,000 or $400,000. I didn't pay that for them. It turned out that ended up being their value. The most I ever paid for a pair was $46,532 for a pair of denims found in some Nevada town and auctioned on eBay.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
In
goodness.
2001, I think it was 2001. And I was the one on eBay, kept, hitting the, refresh button, having a panic attack at the end of the nobody else. Yes.
Oh my
I got
gosh.
them.
Oh my gosh. See how
Yes,
fun your
Ellen.
job was?
Oh, Bobbi, let me tell you, it was
fun.
it's the kind of fun you don't have any idea you're going to have when you get a library degree from UC Berkeley.
Right.
You just don't know.
Now, part of another
Exactly.
thing that you did, and the book, by the way, Jim read a good part of it, and I started reading some of it yesterday, and I will look forward to reading it all. This book reads not like fiction, but so full of detail. It's just a fascinating read, and also just a look at our history through the lens of this man's and the company. It's just a really, really fabulous book. So one of the things that you did is you also followed his pathway, and you tell us about following him through the Isthmus of Panama.
I spent my entire career doing research on Levi, and I plugged everything into a timeline. My timeline was about 130 pages long when I left the company.
Oh my God.
But I was able to figure out that when he left New York to come to Gold Rush San Francisco in 1853, he took the shortest route, which was to take a ship from New York to the Caribbean side of the Isthmus of Panama. And it's only about 50 miles wide. And he took a train halfway across because it was only halfway finished. Then he took a boat on the Chagres River. And then he rode a mule, which he rented from Wells Fargo, by the way, from a town called Barbacoas down to Panama City, and then another boat to San Francisco, which only took about 6 weeks. So I recreated his trip on my personal vacation of 2009. And I hired a guide in Panama who is actually the son of Panama's most famous anthropologist, and his father is the greatest living cartographer in Panama. And we took the train. They had the train now. It's a tourist train. We went all the way across. We went to part of the area where, and we did go on a boat on the Chagres River. There were no mules. Unfortunately, that would have been fun. But the trail that Levi took is now under Lake Gatun. Formed by the Panama Canal. But we did take a boat in that area, and then I saw Panama City. And I had the most wonderful time and really very meaningful. Hernan Arauz is his name. He took me to the National Library of Panama, where they had an entire collection of English language newspapers that were aimed at all of the Americans who were in droves going across the isthmus to get to the gold field. And that's what helped me figure out what boat Levi took to get to San Francisco. It was so wonderful.
Lynn, that's just fascinating to me. Henry, isn't that fascinating?
Absolutely. Yes. The whole story of the Panama Canal is just fascinating. And the story, as you say, before there was one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am hoping there's not all the malaria that they had back then.
Well, luckily,
it was a dangerous crossing for that.
It was very dangerous. There was yellow fever. You could fall off your mule and get eaten by alligators. There were bandits. They mostly went for the people who were going the other direction on the way back to New York because they figured they had a lot of gold. Anybody going to San Francisco is like, oh, he doesn't have any money. But the bandits would get you the other way.
The other way. Wow. Wow. Was there anything through all of your years and your research and all that really stood out to you about Levi or about just the impact of blue jeans? Anything that just, was like a big marble you've held on to all these years?
Well, the one thing that I always think about when I think about these pants is putting the rivets in them made these pants stronger, which meant that if you are a miner outside of like Eureka, Nevada, and your pants rip and you need to go to town to get another pair, it might take you might have to be away from your job 2 or 3 days or even longer. And at $3 a day, you're losing a lot of money, but those pants are going to last longer. You are getting an economic benefit from wearing those pants because they're not going to fall apart on you. You're going to be able to keep working. So that's one thing I always think about is what these pants did for these working men. These were for laboring men, and how it really changed their lives quite a bit. And then my favorite story about Levi Strauss is he had a customer who had a retail store. His name was Antonio Gallardo, and he was in Calaveras County, California. And he wrote a letter to Levi Strauss in 1882, I think. My store is closing. I've lost my job. I need you to get me a job. And he had bought Holt jeans and, dry goods from Levi's for years. And so Levi wrote him back. He said, I can't give you a job, but here's $50. And Gallardo wrote back and said, I don't want your $50. I want you to give me a job. I'm coming to San Francisco. If you don't get me a job, I'm going to blow your head off. So all of Levi's friends,
presentation.
Yeah. So all of Levi's friends are telling him, my God, you've got to go to the police. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. So Gallardo comes to San Francisco and is kind of threatening. And so finally Levi is convinced. And so Levi and Gallardo go to the police court. And he's fine. This guy is finally just sort of chastened. I think he was a little cuckoo. And he's like, he promises that he won't do anything to Levi. And his friends are still telling him, you need to prosecute. You need to bring charges against him. And Levi wouldn't do it. He said, no, he's just unsettled because he lost his job. I know he won't hurt me. And he wouldn't bring charges against him. And the man left town and left him alone. And that's courage. That's compassion.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is. It is.
That's my Uncle Levi.
This is so much fun. We are going to switch gears. I'm going to hold up this book one more time. Levi Strauss, The Man Who Gave Blue Jeans to the World. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to all put our Levi's on and we're going to head to Arizona, 1954 for Dude or Die. And we will be right back after this word from Out West Shop.
Here at the Out West Shop, we're passionate about the American West, the truth and the myth. We're purveyors of fine Western goods. We scout for unique and distinctive apparel, accessories, home decor, and general merchandise that are a reflection of the Western lifestyle. We hunt for unique artisans and craftsmen who are inspired to create decorative art you can wear based on their own love for the story of the West. We round it up and bring it to you. Check out OutWestShop.com when you need anything Western.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with the Writer. Special guests Henry Park and Lynn Downey. We've been talking about Levi Strauss, and we're going to move on to Dude Ranches.
Yeah. So this is the second book in the series, Dude or Die. So Lynn, you have to give us the backstory to the series and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write these books.
Well, so much of my life begins and ends with Levi Strauss and Company. And when I started working for the company, there was this whole run of clothing catalogs. And one of them was from 1938 and it was called Dude Ranch Duds. And I thought, what, a whole catalog of clothes just to wear in a dude ranch? And I knew what a dude ranch was. So I went through it and it was fascinating. It was, jeans and jackets, but satin rodeo shirts and gabardine riding pants and all this stuff. So I just got fascinated by the concept of the dude ranch. And I'm not obsessed or anything, but I've got like 100 pieces of it under my desk, like where I am right now. But then back in 2012, I read a lot of historical mysteries. And I finished reading a wonderful mystery by an Arizona writer named Donis Casey. And I put the book down and I thought, I would love to write a historical novel with like a bit of a mystery in it. And it was like somebody turned on a movie camera in my head and the plot and characters and everything of a story started going through my head. I had to get out of my chair and grab a pencil and paper. And that was the beginning of my first novel, Dudes Rush In, which came out in 2020. So it took me a while to write it. I was still working. I had another couple of history books to write. But what came to me was this character in San Francisco who's a widow. And she goes to her sister-in-law's dude ranch in Arizona to help out during the season. And, she has maybe some romance in her life, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought about it a lot. And what the other part of this for me was the town of Tribulation, Arizona, where the Dude Ranch is, and the H Double Bar are based on one of my favorite places on the face of the planet, which is Wickenburg, Arizona, which I also went to because of Levi Strauss and Company. Because I went there in 2003 to find the grave of a miner whose pants we had in the archives. He had purchased them in Wickenburg in 1917, sent them back to the company in 1920 with a complaint letter. Yeah. So I had to go find this guy's grave. Of course I did. I'd never heard of Wickenburg. I'm a stupid Californian. I went there in July. Yes, I did. And I started, I got overheated and woozy and nauseated walking around the cemetery after I found Homer's grave because, I was dehydrated. But anyway, almost died in a cemetery on my job. I mean, it would have been awesome. So anyway, I've been going to Wickenburg off and on for 20 years. I have dear friends there. I stay with friends. It is just one of those places, that you have that just lives in your heart. And the first time I saw the Sonoran Desert, I almost drove off the road. I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was so beautiful. So when this story came to me in 2012, it came to me as Wickenburg, in Wickenburg of the 1950s. And I think it came to me because of the 1950s, because that was one of a real heyday of the Dude Ranch, Dude Ranch history. Lots of people were going to Dude Ranches, and would also give me a chance to talk a lot about really fun clothing. But the other piece of it is that's the way the characters came to me. They came to me in the 50s. Fiction writers talk all the time about how, they start to, they have a basic outline of how they want the story to go. The characters decide what you're going to write. And I experienced that over and over and over with both of my novels. It's just magic.
Yeah, we hear that. Don't we, Henry? We hear that quite a bit. And of course,
you take dictation, basically.
That's exactly it. Yes.
And they tell you if you try to have them say something or do something that they aren't right, they tell you, they go like, no.
I wouldn't say that.
No. Or, you're trying to write a scene and it's not working. And then you think, what if I do it? And then it's like, what if I do it this way? And then, whoom, there it is. It's because that's what Phoebe wanted to do.
Right. Right. The book that we read was the second book in the series, the one that just came out in October, Dude or Die, 1954. It's also interesting, especially for those of us that don't have a World War II experience. So, my dad, it's like it's another generation away for me from the time period, and other people reading about the 1950s might not really think about it's only a few years since the war.
Yeah.
And there's a very interesting subplot and a charming character that you have has made her way into your story. And I wondered if you'd like to talk a little bit about, who I'm talking about, of course, the writer, how she revealed herself to you. And I don't like spoiler alerts, but she has an interesting story. And I didn't know if you would want to share a bit about it.
Well, there's a character in the book, a young woman who grew up in a Japanese internment camp during World War II. And I also, even though I set my story in Arizona, my main character is from the Bay Area. And I wanted to have sort of a Bay Area connection. And I wanted to have like this extra person, this character. And then she just came to me. And the reason that was sort of in my life is that where my father grew up, I live in Sonoma County, and he went to school in a town called Sebastopol during the war, before he was drafted and went to the war. And about a third of his class were Japanese Americans, Nisei, or even second and third generation Japanese Americans. And one day he came to school and a lot of his friends were gone because they'd been sent to an internment camp in Colorado. So I wanted to honor, this character came to me, and then I wanted to honor my father through this character because he made sure my sister and I always knew what an outrage this was and what an injustice this was. And it disturbed him his whole life. And he wanted us to know what had happened to his friends. And so I'm honoring my father with this character. And I've also dedicated the book to my father and to the friends that he lost during the war.
And she's just a delightful ball of energy when she enters the story. And then for her to have such an interesting connection to the story. I liked that as a reader. I really, really liked that. And it was a bit of a surprise. It wasn't something you necessarily, expect. It's not really a mystery per se. That's sort of, this is for our readers there. It's a historical fiction, but there is a little something going on that is somewhat disturbing, a little annoying. And of course, I kind of kept waiting for somebody to die or, something to happen. And the book kept kind of going along, very interesting, very engaging. But I kept thinking, die is in the title. Is somebody going to die or not? Just a wonderful, wonderful story. And it made me want to go to a dude ranch. We now have dude ranching on our bucket list. It has replaced, it's replaced the balloon ride, which is on the list. But I think that you described this place so beautifully, and the food, and oh my goodness, everything that goes on. It's like, you know what? We really do need to do
Did somebody die?
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. You want to pick up the book and learn that for yourself. Oh my goodness! So will there be a third book?
Yes, there will. I already have like a little inkling of something going on back there, but I probably won't start that until maybe 2025, because I have it also percolating as my next history book.
Okay, so I am looking at the clock. So why don't you go ahead, Lynn, and tell us, I know that you have something you'd like to share about the book you're working on right now. And if you want to give us a little bit of information about that, and then we want to be sure to know where to go to find you, follow you, and all of that great information.
Okay.
So take it away.
All right. Well, as usual, it's related to Wickenburg. In 1871, there was a stagecoach attack called the Wickenburg Massacre, which to this day, historians are still like arm wrestling about who did this. But my fascination with this is there was a young Boston writer named Frederick Loring who was on that stage. And he had gone for 6 months with an exploring expedition all through California, Arizona, and Nevada. It was on his way back to San Francisco to write. And he was one of the people who died in this massacre. And he was so well known that he was like the only person that the massacre was named for. People called, his name was Frederick Loring, and some people called it the Loring Massacre. And I'm fascinated by intersections when the West intersects with something that is not the West, and what is created from that. So Frederick Loring was a Boston intellectual, 21 years old, Harvard graduate. And he goes on this incredibly dangerous exploring survey and then dies in a Western cliche, a stagecoach attack.
Stagecoach.
So how did that get created? And what did we lose when his voice was lost? So that's kind of what I'm working on.
Very good.
And you've been a member of Western Writers of America and Women Writing the West. And how beneficial have you found writing groups for you as a writer?
Oh, these groups have been amazing. Western Writers of America, the opportunities for networking, opportunities to place articles. I've placed articles in Roundup Magazine, and just getting to know the diversity of voices in Western writing through this group. And then my very first conference was this past June when I met the two of you. And I was able to give this biography roundtable. And let me tell you, those people know how to party. I learned a lot about those people.
I think that's why we go again. We want to know more about the parties.
Oh yeah. And then I'm the immediate past president of Women Writing the West. And as past president, I'm running our truly illustrious Willa Literary Award. So I want to encourage all you writers out there, if you're women and you're writing about the West, go to our website, womenwritingthewest.org, and enter the Willa. It's a wonderful award.
So my last question for you, Lynn, and then give us your website and such is, do you get writer's block? And if you do, what do you do about it?
I don't get writer's block. I get writer's slowdown. And then I just get out of my chair and move. I'll do the dishes. I'll go grocery shopping. And then it breaks the log jam and I come right back.
And you come right back.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So how do we find you, follow you and such?
I have a website, lyndowney.com. The old one is up right now. I'm getting a new one. It'll be up early next year. You can follow me on Instagram at lynn.downey.historian, on Facebook by my name, and subscribe to my blog, Tumble Reads, a new twist on the Old West. Yeah. Or send me an email, writerlyndowney@gmail.com.
Wonderful. So Mr. Henry Park.
Yes.
Where can people follow you and you know, all of that good stuff?
Well, That's a good question. No, they can follow me, of course, with my Western blog, Henry's Western Roundup, www.henryswesternroundup.blogspot.com. I can't believe I didn't do that earlier. I always do that.
Well, I know. And now I'm looking at time and we actually have some. So here's another, just a couple quick questions. So let's see, Lynn, what are you reading now or you have on your stack you're looking forward to getting into?
I wanted a big, juicy novel for the fall. I'm reading George Eliot's Middlemarch.
Oh, you are?
Big, fat Victorian novel, and I am loving it. It's really, really wonderful. And I'm also finishing a very big book that's wonderful, Elliot West, Continental Reckoning. It's an absolutely amazing work of Western history and accessible and fun. And just, it's an adventure story. And it's really, really wonderful. So I'm going back and forth between the two.
That's fun. And Henry, I know you are so busy with deadlines for True West and all. Are you having fun reading something?
Actually, I have been going through thousands of my father's books. I was back in New York, working on breaking down his library, essentially. And so I've been grabbing all sorts of stuff I'd meant to read. So I'm, after all these years, actually reading the 7% Solution.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
how fun. Yeah. How fun.
I wanted to ask Lynn, if I might.
Yes.
I find it so interesting that you have worked in nonfiction so long, and now you're writing novels and going back to nonfiction back and forth. Do you find the switch back and forth difficult?
Not at all. It uses different parts of my brain. Mm-hmm. It's like different rooms in my brain. There's the fiction room and the nonfiction room, and I just don't find it hard at all.
That's great.
Lynn, have you done any screenwriting or thinking about taking something and turning it into?
Funny you should ask. I have turned Dudes Rush In into a screenplay. I'm getting lots of feedback from screenwriters. I've entered it into a few competitions. I'm a complete noob. I don't know what's going to happen, but that was another room in there. Boy, was that fun. Absolute utter fun.
Oh my gosh, that's really fun. Well, we've really enjoyed having both of you with us tonight.
It's been fun.
It has been fun.
It's been good.
We read two really good books. So once again, Levi Strauss, The Man Who Gave Blue Jeans to the World, Lynn Downey, and her second book in the series, Dude or Die. And you might want to go ahead and start with the first one, which was Dudes Rush. What was for Dudes Rush In?
Dudes Rush In. Yes.
Dudes Rush In, and then this is Dude or Die, and she's telling us that there could be a third one on the horizon. So wonderful. So we wish both of you a really wonderful holiday season and a joyous 2024. We thank you for being with us tonight. Next week. Oh, you have a quote?
Yeah.
Oh, you need to do your quote? Oh, we have time. We have time. Good.
Well, I get a little preface here on the quote. Levi Strauss built his business and his life around nearly every touchstone of the history of the American West: mining, railroads, real estate, and commerce. He was also committed to philanthropy, education, and the welfare of children. Add the tough, riveted denim pants to this list, and it's easy to see how much Levi Strauss helped to make the modern West. An employee, when asked about Levi, summed up his character in a way that best captures this complicated man. He was tough, but a fine fellow.
And that quote is from Lynn's preface to the book, which I found so engaging that I just had to keep turning the pages all the way through. So delighted to have you both with us. Next week, we will be reading stories by Erin Pringle. She'd been a guest with us on the Writer's Block and was always fun and had contacted me as soon as this series was out. So we'll be chatting with her next Thursday. And let's see, we are now, all of our shows are available, archived as podcasts. You can find them on any of your favorite platforms or go to Podbean. And then you'll see all the icons and you can find iHeart or Spotify or TuneIn or or Google or whatever your favorite is, and just click it. You'll see all 60, after tonight, 64 episodes, all the way back, Henry, to the very first one with Courtney on August 4th, 2022.
Wow.
And we would appreciate if you did that, and if you followed us so that you never miss a broadcast. And we thank you for being with us tonight.
We do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
And
guys.
remember,
It's always a great day out
west. Keep reading.
We'll see.
You're listening to Rendezvous with the Writer with Bobbi Jean and Jim Bell, only on LA Talk Radio.